The doors to the operating room had barely closed behind our 8-year-old daughter when my husband's phone lit up on the plastic chair beside him. "I miss last night already. She suspects nothing. Call me when it's over." I wasn't trying to snoop. I was only reaching for the phone because it kept vibrating while Ethan had buried his face in his hands. For a second, the hospital hallway disappeared. The fluorescent lights, the smell of disinfectant, the nurse walking past with a clipboard, the coffee growing cold between my palms. Everything blurred except those 12 words. I read them again and again. Then I looked at my husband. He was crying, not quietly, not dramatically, just the exhausted, silent crying of a father whose little girl was fighting for her life. He had no idea that, in the same moment he feared losing our daughter, I had just lost my marriage. 3 hours earlier, our lives had still looked almost normal. My name is Claire. I'm 36 years old. For 11 years I'd believed I was married to a decent man. Not perfect. Never perfect. Ethan forgot anniversaries. He worked too much. He avoided difficult conversations until they exploded. But he was gentle with our daughter. He always packed her lunch into ridiculous animal shapes. He read bedtime stories using different voices. Every Saturday morning he made blueberry pancakes, even though he hated cooking. Those tiny habits convince you that someone is safe, that they are yours. Looking back now, I realize safety can become a habit too. When you stop questioning. Emma had been diagnosed with a congenital heart defect when she was 5. The doctors assured us surgery would eventually solve it. Eventually became today. For months, we'd lived around hospital appointments, medication schedules, insurance paperwork, late-night panic attacks neither of us admitted having. Stress changes people. I knew that, which was why I ignored so many warning signs. Or maybe I chose not to see them. About 6 months before the surgery, Ethan had started protecting his phone. At first, it was subtle, turning the screen over, taking calls outside, laughing at messages without showing me. When I asked who kept texting him, he'd smile. Work. Always work. His marketing company had landed several new clients. Long hours made sense. Late meetings made sense. Business dinners made sense. Every explanation sounded reasonable on its own. That's how lies survive. Not through one giant deception. Through hundreds of believable little ones. The first real crack appeared because of laundry. I'd found a hotel keycard inside his jacket pocket. Roommate 14, downtown. He laughed when I asked about it. Oh, the conference last week. I remembered the conference. 3 days, 2 nights. Nothing suspicious. Except his company had booked everyone into another hotel. I'd seen the confirmation email myself. When I mentioned that, he paused, only for half a second, then shrugged. They overbooked us. Some people got moved. Simple, plausible, forgettable. I wanted to believe him, so I did. A month later, our neighbor Linda waved at me while I watered flowers. I saw Ethan downtown Tuesday. I smiled. He was working. She frowned. Oh. He looked like he was having lunch. With clients? I'm not sure. There was a blonde woman with him. My stomach tightened. Then Linda immediately added, "They looked professional. Professional. One word. Enough to keep suspicion alive without proving anything." When Ethan came home, I mentioned it casually. He didn't hesitate. "Oh, Sophie from accounting." We were discussing a campaign. Again, perfectly reasonable. Then came the perfume. Not on him. Inside the passenger seat of his car. A sweet floral scent. too elegant to belong to me. I never wore perfume. Emma hated strong smells because they made her nauseous. When I asked, Ethan chuckled. One of the clients hugged everyone after signing. It sounded ridiculous. Except, it could happen, couldn't it? Every explanation left just enough room for doubt. Not certainty. Never certainty. That was somehow worse, because accusing someone without proof feels cruel, especially when your daughter is preparing for open-heart surgery. So I buried every question. I convinced myself stress was making me paranoid. Maybe I was becoming the kind of wife who imagined betrayal everywhere. Maybe fear had simply found a new target. The week before surgery, Ethan surprised Emma with a tiny silver bracelet. "It'll bring you courage," he whispered while fastening it around her wrist. Emma smiled despite all the hospital tests. "Promise you'll both be here when I wake up?" "We promise," he answered immediately. I answered too, but something inside me hesitated. Not because of surgery, because promises suddenly sounded fragile. The hospital admitted Emma before sunrise. She tried to be brave. She even joked with the nurses. "I'll have the coolest scar in 3rd grade." Everyone laughed. Then she looked at me when nobody else noticed. Her smile disappeared. "Mom, what if I don't wake up?" The question shattered me. I hugged her so tightly a nurse gently reminded me not to interfere with the IV line. "You will," I whispered. "You absolutely will." I wasn't sure whether I was comforting her or myself. When they wheeled her toward the operating room, Ethan walked beside the bed until the nurses stopped him. Emma stretched out one small hand. He kissed her forehead. "I'll be right here." She disappeared behind heavy automatic doors. Silence swallowed the hallway. That was when his phone vibrated. I stared at the message. "I missed last night already. She suspects nothing." The words replayed in my head like a broken recording. Last night, while I slept beside him, while Emma packed her favorite stuffed rabbit for surgery, while we talked about how everything would be okay, he'd been somewhere else, with someone else. I slowly locked the phone without opening the message. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Ethan finally looked up. "Was that the surgeon?" "No." I handed him the phone. "You got a text." He glanced down. The color drained from his face. Not slowly, instantly, like someone had switched off the blood beneath his skin. For one terrifying second. He forgot to breathe. Then he looked straight at me. Not angry, not defensive. Terrified. "I can explain." The oldest sentence in the world, and somehow, the worst. Before I could answer, another phone started ringing. Mine. It was an unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it. Not today. My voice barely worked. "Hello?" A woman answered. Calm. Almost gentle. "Claire? Yes? I'm sorry you're finding out like this." My heart stopped. I never wanted it to happen today. I looked directly at Ethan. His eyes had become desperate. He stood so quickly the chair scraped loudly across the hospital floor. "Who is that?" he whispered. The woman continued. "You deserve to know the truth." Then she said something that made me question not only my marriage, but everything Ethan had told me during the last year. "I wasn't the only woman your husband has been lying to." And before I could ask another question, the line went dead. I turned toward Ethan. He had gone completely pale. But it wasn't the fear of a man caught cheating. It looked more like the fear of someone whose worst secret had finally found its way into the light. Ethan didn't deny it. He didn't grab the phone. He didn't accuse me of invading his privacy. Instead, he whispered only one sentence. "Please. Not here." I stared at him in disbelief. "Not here?" I repeated. "Our daughter is in surgery, and that's your concern?" Every muscle in his face tightened, but before he could answer, the surgeon walked into the waiting area. Time froze. Neither of us breathed. The surgeon removed his surgical cap and smiled. "The procedure went well." The words crashed over me like a wave. My knees almost gave out. "She's stable," he continued. "The next 24 hours are critical, but everything went according to plan." I burst into tears, not because everything was over, because for the first time that day, something had gone right. Ethan cried too. He reached for my hand instinctively. I pulled mine away. The relief that our daughter was alive couldn't erase what I'd read, or what I'd heard. Emma was transferred to intensive care. She was still unconscious. Machines breathed beside her. Monitors beeped steadily. She looked impossibly small beneath the blankets. Ethan stood beside her bed for nearly 10 minutes without speaking. Then he kissed her forehead and quietly walked out. I followed him into the hallway. "No more lies," he nodded. "No more. Who is she?" He closed his eyes. "Her name is Rachel." So there was an affair. Yes, the word landed like a hammer. It was real. Everything I'd feared. Everything I'd tried to convince myself wasn't happening. "You've been sleeping with another woman while our daughter was preparing for heart surgery?" "No." The answer came so quickly that it almost sounded offended. "It wasn't like that." I laughed bitterly. "There's literally a text saying she misses last night." He lowered his head. "I know." Before he could continue, footsteps echoed behind us. A woman about 40 approached slowly. Dark hair, tired eyes. She looked almost as nervous as we were. When she stopped in front of us, she looked directly at me. "I'm Claire." "I know." Her voice shook. "I'm Rachel." My stomach dropped. This was her, the woman from the message, the woman who had called me. For one wild second I wanted to slap her. Instead I simply asked, "Why are you here?" She looked at Ethan, then back at me. "Because I couldn't let him keep lying." Rachel reached into her purse and handed me an envelope. Inside were photographs. Not romantic photographs. Hospital records, medical invoices, a little girl. Around 9 years old, bald from chemotherapy. She looked hauntingly familiar. Rachel swallowed. "Her name is Lily." I frowned. "So?" She looked at Ethan. "You tell her." He couldn't. He physically couldn't force the words out. Rachel finally whispered them herself. "Lily is Ethan's daughter." Silence. The hallway disappeared again. "No." I shook my head. "No. She's 12. We met 13 years ago. We were together briefly. I found out I was pregnant after we'd already broken up." "I never told him." My eyes moved to Ethan. His face confirmed every word. "He found out last year." Everything inside me twisted. "So, you've had another child this entire time?" "I didn't know she existed," Ethan answered. "I swear to you." Rachel nodded. "That's true." "I contacted him 11 months ago. Lily was diagnosed with leukemia. I needed information about family medical history." Ethan had learned he had another daughter. While our own daughter was preparing for heart surgery, the pieces started fitting together. The secret meetings, the hotel, the money transfers, the late-night calls, the perfume, the mysterious lunches, every clue, every lie. None of them were about romance. They were about another child, another family, another impossible responsibility. But then, I remembered the text. "I missed last night." I looked directly at Rachel. "What about that?" She closed her eyes. "That was real." My heart shattered a second time. Rachel didn't look proud. She looked ashamed. We spent one night together. It happened after Lily's cancer relapsed. We were terrified. We'd just been told she might not survive. Ethan completely broke down. So did I. We made a horrible mistake. One night. One decision. One betrayal. Nobody tried to justify it. Nobody called it love. Nobody blamed alcohol, or loneliness, or stress. It remained exactly what it was. A choice. A terrible one. I looked at Ethan. You promised Emma we'd both be here. I was. You promised me. I know. You looked into my eyes every day. I know. You slept beside me. I know. Every answer was the same. No excuses. Only guilt. For some reason, that made it hurt even more. Rachel quietly wiped away tears. I ended everything the next morning. I told him it could never happen again. He agreed. The message... I sent it before I realized today was Emma's surgery. My head snapped toward her. You didn't know. I knew she was having surgery this week. I forgot the exact date. Her voice cracked. When I realized what I'd done, I called you immediately. She looked completely devastated. I couldn't let you discover it months later. I've spent the last hour hating myself. For the first time, I believed her. 3 days later, Emma finally woke up. Her voice was weak. Did I do it? I smiled through tears. You absolutely did. She reached toward me, then toward Ethan. We both leaned closer. She squeezed our hands together. Promise. No fighting. Children always know more than adults think. Ethan couldn't answer. Neither could I. Over the following weeks, another truth slowly emerged. Lily's condition worsened. Rachel spent every day at the children's oncology ward. Ethan divided every waking hour between 2 hospitals. He wasn't trying to build 2 families. He was desperately trying not to lose either daughter. But he destroyed his marriage, trying to protect everyone from pain. Instead, he multiplied it. 6 months later, the divorce papers were signed. Peacefully. No screaming. No lawyers tearing each other apart. Just 2 exhausted people acknowledging that love and trust are not the same thing. Emma recovered beautifully. Her scar became something she proudly showed everyone. Lily entered remission. For the first time in over a year, both girls were healthy enough to meet. Neither of them knew the full story. Only that they had discovered they were sisters. Watching them laugh together in the park was almost unbearable. Not because it hurt, because it reminded me that children often build bridges adults are too broken to cross. I never forgave Ethan for the affair. Some betrayals permanently change the shape of a relationship, but I also stopped seeing him as a monster. He was a flawed man who tried to carry impossible burdens alone. He lied. He cheated. He failed the people who trusted him most, yet he also never abandoned either of his daughters. Both things were true. That was the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the worst person in your story isn't entirely evil. Sometimes the person who breaks your heart is also the person desperately trying to save someone else's. And accepting both truths hurts far more than choosing only one. Secrets told to protect people often become the very thing that destroys them. Honesty may not save every relationship, but deception almost always destroys trust. What do you think? If you discovered your spouse had hidden another child and committed a single act of infidelity during the darkest moment of both families' lives, would you ever be able to forgive them? Or would the betrayal make reconciliation impossible? Share your thoughts in the comments.